Sounds good.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the third episode or installment, episode 3, you might say, of The Force Sensitive. And we are joined by a person from far away at the moment. But first, I'm going to introduce my co-host, Mr. Gord, is with us.
Hey, good morning.
And it is kind of been a bit of a rough morning because I thought I had a severe sound issue here because I'm so nervous about it due to episode 201 of Nerd Rage that I just had my headphones turned down, which was the problem. So I fixed it. Anyway, and we're also joined by our third guest, Mr. Mike Honcho. How are you, sir?
Doing great.
And you were
A
speaking
little late here, but
Yes, so you were speaking to us from the land of the rising sun. So what time is it there for you?
it's around 10
Okay.
in the evening.
Okay.
So on a Friday.
Yeah,
But
so it's
I
party
don't
time.
have the excuse of it being the well, I think it was party time for you guys last night. I was wondering how rough of a go it would be for you.
Oh, no, it's fine. It was just business as usual. So let's get into it. What's your earliest memory of Star Wars?
My earliest memory is we were over at my dad's friend's house, and I think it was my whole family. And I know that I'd already watched Star Wars, the original Star Wars, but I had everybody, I basically was inconsolable with I wanted to watch it right there because I knew they had it, and so they ended up. I think they ended up compromising or just fast forwarding it to the end where they were running away and all the action was happening, and yeah, I was satisfied with that.
So your introduction to it, you wanted to watch it based on reputation? Like, why were you excited to watch it?
Well, I think at that point it was my earliest memory, but I'd already I'm assuming I'd already watched it, but that's really my earliest memory. And it might have been just a thing where the other kids were talking about it,
Right.
and I wanted to watch it, and yeah, it was it was awesome. I ever since I first watched it, I just thought this was this is the bee's knees.
And you, what year do you think this is?
Geez, okay, so I was born in '79.
Okay.
And and it was VHS by that point.
Okay.
So I'm thinking that I must have been 4 or 5 ish.
Gotcha.
And yeah, so that's my original exposure would have been the episode 4, I guess, as it is referred to now.
Do you think you saw them in order? Like 4, 5, 6?
I don't think I did.
So crazy. I feel like I'm living in crazy land. Everybody saw these things out of order.
Well, and I've heard you ask this question on the former 2 episodes, and I think that what happened is that the way that we got Empire was, and I don't think we had legit copies of any of the tapes. The Return of the Jedi, we definitely didn't because I remember me and my dad to go to this kind of shady tinted window like office complex, and it went down like a drug deal. He bought me the bootleg, and
Wow.
and it was a theater. It was recorded off of a theater. It was letterboxed as as I guess it was later deemed. And I always thought that was weird, but
You know what's funny?
yeah. So
And I don't hate to cut you off, and I'm gonna let you finish. But what's funny is that I had all 3 on VHS, but only Empire was like the official video. Do you know what I mean? And my Star Wars and my Return of the Jedi were both recorded off of HBO. And the nice thing was with Star Wars that it was first on the video, and then True Grit came on afterwards, and then Return of the Jedi was second, so it was a pain in the balls to try to kind of find it when I wanted to watch it again. Like, you couldn't just run it back. And it was recorded after a show. It was like a movie called Water Babies. I don't know if you remember it, which sounds terrible now, but like it was like a one of those movies that was like half animated, half live action, like Bedknobs and Broomsticks or whatever. And these like kids like went into this like magical pond or lake, and then once they went into the lake, it was all animated and weird. And then they would come back out of the pond. I think at the end it's called Water Babies. So like, but I say all that to say this: when you like you watch Star Wars when you're a kid or whatever, and like that whole like rhythm of it becomes part of it, like the Fox intro, and then the a long time ago in a galaxy far, or the Lucasfilm, and then a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away, and and then the band,
Oh yeah.
So for my rhythm of Star Wars as a kid always started with a
Oh, right. Okay.
like the HBO intro was
Yeah,
it's like part of the fabric
over-
of Star Wars to me. Like even now when I hear an
that's
HBO
funny.
intro, I like think like my mind, my body and soul tell me Star Wars is coming on next. Which is a weird dichotomy. But
You're very right about that, Bobby. The VHS tapes that I had, there was that music and fanfare for the CBS Fox home video, business, and then they'd have a couple trailers for the movies that you're already watching.
right.
Oh, interesting. Genius. Yeah, lovely. So to kind of go back to the order is I think that I specifically remember that we had this like dubbing party where we went to my uncle's house, and they had tapes, but I think they were recordings too, because that copy of Empire was garbage. But I had it, so I think that I just kind of stuck with Star Wars and Jedi, and then I never really explored Empire, and I even forgot it existed until maybe like sixth grade. And then I just started watching Empire pretty much, because it was like the thing that I never knew I was missing.
Right.
And like that, became my favorite one, at that point. But it was definitely, it was Star Wars, throughout my childhood, the first one, and then, Jedi, because of a few different reasons. Jedi I saw in the theaters. I think timing wise, it was a re-release. I think that like it came out in, whatever year, 84, and then they re-released it 2 years later. I don't know the exact years, but I remember there was a whole big to-do that me and my family, I think we had like family pictures that night. I think it was the only time we ever did that. And then we went out to go see Jedi. And,
Wow.
And then, so then that one was really special to me. I mean, my dad leaned in and, he was reading the title card, and then reading the Jabba subtitles to me, in the theater. And like, that was, I distinctly remember that because, I was like, yeah, that's great. Thanks, Dad.
My dad did the same thing, man. And I'll never forget, like, he used to always kind of chuckle to himself when Jabba used to say to Leia, "In time, you will learn to appreciate me."
Little does Jabba know.
Well, to this day, that still has like a heavy sexual tone to it to me, because I knew he was laughing at something that I didn't understand.
Oh man, that whole like Emperor and Vader thing, a little like tissy fight they have about, I told you to wait on the command ship. I have felt him. Strange that I have not. In my teen years, it was just like, oh my god.
You do touch on something that I think is kind of cool, and to be fair, I'm kind of having that moment with Solo to a lesser extent, obviously, than you did. But like when I was a kid, Empire was the least interesting, also because as an adult, when I look back on it, it's because it's so lore heavy, and as a kid, I kind of just watched the Hoth battle, and then I was sort of done with the movie, because I wanted like the fun action elements, and it wasn't until I got older that I kind of learned to appreciate it also. But like I'm kind of going through that with Solo, because like it came out and I watched it in the theater, obviously, and then I was like, like take or leave it, and I went like a year before I watched it again. So now I'm like, oh, you know what? This is, for some reason, it's more digestible to me now. And now I like have this urge to kind of catch it up with my like in terms of numbers of views that like the other ones have for me.
Right.
So like because it's almost like I went some time without kind of just going along for the ride of it.
Right, right.
Did you collect it all as a kid?
So I had toys when I was a kid, and my collecting, it wasn't collecting then. I mean, it was toys, and I think I blew most of those up with M80s and stuff.
Nice.
or like a lot of them were buried in my backyard. Like we used to like build like mud castles and stuff in the backyard. It was like the whole backyard was hard pan. Parents couldn't do anything with it, but we got in there with hoses and basically made the whole the whole backyard essentially valuable. So like basically my parents went like, oh shit, we can plant stuff in here. So yeah, this is no longer your guys' play place. We're planting vegetables out here.
Wow.
And like just the Star Wars guys just stayed in the ground. I think we left them over.
Did you ever have like a tomato pop up with a Chewbacca stuck in it?
Like later on, I ended up finding some of that stuff because we got an above ground pool. So me and my mom were out there, tilling, that. And, I found like a scout trooper and I found,
no kidding,
a few different figures. Yeah.
That's cool, man. That kind of stuff. I don't know why I find it like, it's almost like it feels like archaeological to me, and you like find this.
No, totally. And I was totally into Indiana Jones, and that's also I think another reason why Empire lost out is because the same day we got Empire and Raiders, and I think Empire lost out to like a stint of Raiders of the Lost Ark. So I was just watching that pretty heavily at that time. And then Jedi came along and just like destroyed it all. It's and kind of like Empire was just lost until my until my pubescent years, as it were.
Right.
But to go back to collecting, it started off right. So I collected the books. How do I start here? In junior high, we were supposed to have a book in homeroom, and we were at the mall, and I had to pick out a book. We go to the bookstore, and then there's Heir of the Empire in hardcover, and I was like, whoa, Star Wars! You don't see this. Like when's the last time that you've seen something an actual release of something Star Wars, like new Star Wars?
Right.
So that was kind of the and I think that maybe Dark Empire had been out, but I don't know the math on that. But
it's funny.
Yeah, so
Dark Empire never hit for me either, dude. Like I remember it coming out as a kid. Like I remember the comic, and I remember thinking to myself, like it just always had this vibe to it, like it didn't count. I don't know why. Huh. I can't tell you where that feeling came from, but there was something about Heir to the Empire, like seeing that cover, dude. I used to stare at that cover for hours.
Oh, it was bad. And it was just like, the thing is that I was staring at it, at the comic book shop, because I think they were pretty expensive for my budget when I was a kid.
Right.
And I think they had a trade paperback, but I think the pricing was much different. I think that there was
of Heir to the Empire.
I want to say trade paperbacks were, they were out of my price range at the time.
But that was like the comic book came much later than the novel.
The Heir to the Empire comic or Dark Empire talking now?
Yeah, I think I'm getting confused as well. Dark Empire was the comic. That was the clone body emperor.
Yes.
And
right.
and then there was Dark Empire 2. But none of those felt like authentic to me. But Heir to the Empire, the Thrawn book,
okay,
was right. That and I think it was all their marketing engine just got pumped into that, right? I think that Dark Horse was doing all of these different aliens and RoboCops and all that,
right?
And I think that you just saw it as like another one of those, like, well, okay, well, they just have this Dark Horse thing going on over here, and who knows whether it's what's now we refer to as canon,
right?
But
you read you read Heir to the Empire as well, right?
So eventually, I read it. I think, I wasn't able to get it that day that it came out just because I don't think my mom knew that I was serious. Like
Right.
she didn't know that what I would be serious about reading. So I either picked up Terminator 2, the book, the novelization, or Bo Jackson's autobiography. It was one of those two. Both enjoyable.
Just iconic folks.
After I read those, and I think it was like she gave it, she told me to get those as like, prep, and then like I think like once I'd proven myself, then I think I was able to get the paper book of Heir to the Empire, and then and then it was on. Like I bought all the books after that, all hardcover if they had them. I remember getting the Jedi Academy first one, like at a grocery store, but those never came out in hardcover as far as I know.
Correct.
It was like an autographed.
They're
like an autographed version that I've got in the store. Had a little sticker on it that said autographed by Kevin J. Anderson. So
they had
that was cool.
They had a limited promotional run later on of a hardcover edition of the Jedi Academy where all three are compiled. And I have it.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, I have it, and they did the same for Solo too. I'm like turning away from the mic as I'm looking at them, but like they're hard to come by. But dude, I'm telling you, man, those covers. There's something about the covers of those books that like.
Yeah, the Heir to the Empire cover, that Starfield, like just the blue Starfield,
yes,
is just
and like
freaking beautiful.
All those lights and energy coming off Saboth's fingers and stuff, and like Thrawn with his arms crossed. Like I just remember like looking at it for hours, thinking like, oh my god, like you know what I mean? Like I got to figure out who all these characters are and how they play in, and I was fascinated with that, man. I remember making a timeline, like I was in sixth grade, I think, or middle school, and I remember making a timeline of like where these characters were going, because I was like, these books are going to go on forever. I can tell right now they're going to go on forever, and I got to keep track of everything. So I like wrote this time, like on a scratch piece of paper that I eventually lost.
When it seems like forever when in those adolescent years, right?
Yeah. Well, I wonder what the.
I mean,
when that, let me find out when that actually hit.
The dark times seemed like forever.
Yeah, for sure.
Speaking of the timelines, too, something cool I liked is they'd start throwing that in the beginning of the novels, too, and you knew where the books laid. And they had the years and everything.
Yeah, so Heir to the...
Right. There was like a little, like a timeline in the inside covers, right?
Yeah.
I was trying to think about where that was. I think they also did it in like Star Wars Insider magazine or something like that.
Oh, probably. That was probably something they were doing every once in a while, too.
Yeah.
Right. So I started collecting the books, and then in '92, which was a year after Heir of the Empire came out, I had we talked a little bit about VHS tapes, but I think it was like Spike TV or something. They ran no commercial versions of the trilogy.
Oh yeah.
So I ended up recording over all of my tapes, newer versions, but I really regret, recording over that bootleg that I got of Return of the Jedi. But they ended up releasing a letterbox trilogy in '92, before the THX ones. And this is like this really dope box set with a hologram of the Luke holding up the lightsaber, Leia next to him, Darth Vader in the background. So that was like my first legit copy of the trilogy. And I didn't even know what letterbox meant.
Right.
I just picked it up based on like, well, this dope box, it must be a letterbox. I don't know. So I ended up putting it in. I'm like, oh, it's the black bars. Oh, wow. And I was slightly disappointed until I realized that I'm like, oh, I could see that sand person.
Yeah, dude, there was a severe miseducation, I feel like, to the general masses of formats, because I remember seeing stuff in widescreen for the first time also, and I'm like, how obnoxious is this? Yeah, they gave us some stuff on the sides, but I feel like they cut off some stuff in the top and bottom.
Totally. But seeing that elusive sand person, through Luke's binoculars, that was like, I'm like, oh.
Yeah, dude, I think that's a moment for everybody. I feel like that is like the I don't know what to describe it, but it's like that thing that everybody was like you would mention in your most private moments with someone, like, dude, I don't see the sand person. You know, it was like it was like a confession almost, and then like you'd find like the one jerk that would be like, oh, dude, you don't even like Star Wars, you don't see him. You don't see him in there?
Yeah, that guy. Right. He's like, no, he's totally right there. He's like right there, right between the two lamps.
and then it gives you a stigma about talking to it with the next person, you know, like,
right. You're like,
I've been struggling to see it, but I know it's there because Tommy saw it, and he's there somewhere. I'm just having a hard time with it. It's so funny.
Yeah. So yeah, I collected the books, and then I mean, like after that first trilogy came out, then we had the THX ones. And then there was the THX letterbox one.
Yep.
Got that. And then, and then we ended up getting like the widescreen special editions on VHS.
Jump in.
And then we got the DVDs.
What you got?
There's something dirty there with that THX version because it was put out about a year before the special editions. And at this point, we're very used to continuous releases of movies in general and Star Wars for sure. But, man... Yeah, that's not cool.
No, I definitely feel like a sucker every time.
Yeah,
and
they knew
when it came out, when the Blu-rays came out, I was like, I'm not gonna get these. But my mom ended up, I'd had digital versions that my kid was watching on the iPad that I showed him, and then she's like, oh, he's into Star Wars. So when she came and visited when my daughter was born, she brought the Blu-rays, and then I was like, you don't have to get those. You could just take them back. And she's like, you want this, don't you? I'm like, yeah, you got my number. So yeah.
I want to chime in real quick also with the books. Like, I remember seeing that book in the bookstore with my grandma. I was at my grandma's, so I spent a week there during the summer, which felt like heaven to me. But looking back on it, it probably felt like heaven to my father as well. Right. But I remember seeing that book in the bookstore with her, and I was like, I need this. And like my parents, like, wait, just so we're clear, you want me to buy this book for you so that you can read it.
You can read it.
And I was like, yeah. And they were like, yep, get it. You want two just in case? Like, keep one in the house and one for travel. And then my dad was like, he's reading it. He's like, well, get them. Are there more? Get them, all of them.
Did they end up buying you like the Mind's Eye and the Lando?
Yeah. Oh yeah,
stuff?
The Mind's Eye, Splinter of the Mind's Eye, and then there was like, I even had these little ones. They were like soft, because like before a whole bunch of books were out, they were like they were numbered 1 through 5, and they were like young readers. And one was like Vader's Hand, or
there was 6 of those.
Yes.
Jabba the Hutt.
Yes,
with the Hutt with the beard.
Yes,
Jabba's dad.
Yep, dude. And I mainly like I read them all. And it's probably the
Glove of Darth Vader. That's the first.
Yes,
I remember.
Yes, the Glove of Darth Vader. And like, dude, I just remember.
Oh, okay.
You remember them, right? Like, because
yeah.
Like,
I just don't think I read them.
Well, there's only one that I couldn't get my way through, and I have a theory that no one has actually read it, and I don't care. I don't care what
which one is it?
I don't care what either of you gentlemen may confess to me today. I'm just not going to believe you, okay? Because you would be the first, and I'm just going to decide that you're full of shit. I'll say it. Truce at Bakura.
No, I read that thing.
No, you didn't. No, you didn't.
Dude. Okay.
I made it. I made it halfway through.
I read enough to know it's bad,
dude. I made it halfway through, and I was like, I can't with this thing. This is horrible.
Okay, I think the cool thing about that is that it wasn't surprising when Qui-Gon Jinn started cutting through bulkheads in episode 1 because they do it in there. That was heavy in that book. He was whatever those lizard things were. He was cutting bulkheads left and right.
In my mind, those lizard things looked like either A, the green guy from Transformers Season 3, the little lizard fella, or B, they all look like extrapolated versions of the dino saucers.
That sounds about right. I don't even remember. I just remember they were like vaguely lizard alien
so
things
terrible.
that were stealing people's souls.
Oh,
they were metal.
so
Were they
bad.
putting people into metal? I don't know. But yeah, it was that was interesting. Yeah, so I ended up reading like as many of the books as they had. So that was kind of my main collection until like one night, I was in high school and I had a dream that there was going to be new Star Wars figures, and like the packages, they look like the cover of Heir to the Empire, and and it seemed like so real, and I was like, well, what? I'm like, let me go ahead and like pop on the whatever that version of the internet was,
Mm-hmm.
and look into this. And like, I'd never gone to like a news group. I had like my buddy was he was pretty into the stuff, and he told me how to do all this stuff. I ended up going to like a alt.news.Star Wars or something like that. And yeah, there was like an announcement that they were making the figures. And so I ended up calling every store in the phone book like that, until they came out. And it was months. And we'd gone on so many, how do you say, like wild goose chases, because people didn't know the difference between Star Trek and Star Wars.
Right. Right.
So it actually helped me with actually my career.
No kidding.
Because it was I was used to just calling out of the phone book, calling people, asking questions, and then asking questions to make sure they weren't BSing me, and just trying to figure that out. So when I ended up, having this job where the company said, hey, here's a phone book, call people to develop business, I was like, oh, hey, yeah, totally, I could do that.
Wow.
Just looking for those figures. But it ended up being, my parents just got, there's a little pressure from them because they wasted gas a few times just because I didn't qualify, that it was Star Wars and not Star Trek.
Mm-hmm.
But one day on my dad's day off, I called Walmart and they had them. And I ended up getting like the whole first wave, 2 Obi-Wans, because I thought, if I'm going to open one of them, I'm gonna open Obi-Wan, because I don't even know the reason behind it.
Well, you got to keep the other one for an investment, cool. Obviously.
Yeah. Oh, man, I ended up opening up a few of them, mm-hmm. Despite the fact that they were these very valuable Longsaber versions.
Oh man, I had that stuff all open before I knew there was even a variant.
Right.
That first run came out open.
Yeah.
Immediately.
Yeah. So I ended up getting heavy into collecting the first kind of wave, the Power of the Forces. Even they had the Jedi Luke and the Han and Carbonite came out in the same wave. I ended up opening up one of the Jedi Lukes. It was the tan vest version that I opened up. Didn't buy 2 of those. I bought 2 of the Hans, which I opened one of them up. So I got pretty heavy into that, but also the special editions came out during that time, and everybody started really getting into Star Wars again.
Right.
And honestly, it was a bit of a turnoff because it just got overhyped, and you got all these people kind of they weren't fans. I have ownership.
Right.
I've been a fan way longer than you guys.
Yeah.
I've watched each of these movies hundreds of times.
See, it's an interesting thing you bring up like that. There's a culture with the Marvel movies like that still.
Yeah, there is. I think there's also there's something relatable about like going through the trenches with a franchise, like. And honestly, the only 2 I can really draw that comparison with is Star Wars and Transformers, like where there's like this huge dark time of available kind of media and merchandise to consume, And when you stick it out with the franchise and it comes back, you do feel like you paid your dues or something with it. You know, like
right.
There's something about that, man. I know what you mean. I don't know if I've ever felt that way about Star Wars specifically, but like people that are really into it today, or like the prequel folks, you know, like they'd have no recollection of what it means to go like 10 years without anything, or you know, whatever that expansive time was. I guess,
Right.
you know, I guess almost 8 years or so, but like where it's just null and void. Like you walk into a store and there's nothing Star Wars anywhere. You know, it's just gone. Like I think there's something to talk about there. You know, like in regard to sticking with it. Like there's something there. There's paying dues, or I don't know, going through the trenches. I don't know how else to describe it.
Yeah, I mean, there was a few times during that time where, I mean, let me see. I was going to bookstores, and then you know I couldn't get anything but novels for you know my homeroom stuff. But they had a source book for the role playing game. It was like West End Games.
Yeah, I know the exact one.
Yep.
I have a bunch of them. I never played.
No, me neither. I don't know how to play a role playing game at all. But the source book was awesome. It had like all this great info.
Yeah.
But you know, not canon because you know when Obi-Wan's recounted when they're talking about Obi-Wan facing off against Vader, you know, for their first battle, Darth Vader had a red lightsaber.
Yeah.
You know, as they described it, and then you know. Yeah.
Dude, I still have, I'm just looking at it right now. I still have the Dark Side source book from West End Games. Like,
nice.
Because, like, it's just filled with so much, like, good Sith information, like, about, like, you know, all these, like, Exar Kun is in there, and, like.
Oh, wow. So that's later. That's, like, after
it was
Anderson books.
Yeah, it was much later.
They ran up through the mid-90s with West End Games.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Oh, yeah, they must have definitely had a resurgence, right?
Yeah.
But I think the ones I had, you know, the first printing was when they made the game, and it was 87. I looked it up. And, I mean, that was, you know, in stores, I guess, presumably the whole time. And then they had these Starlog technical journals. They had this. They were like Starlog magazine, you know, presents Star Wars technical journal, and then they had Tatooine, then they had the Empire, and then they had, I think the last one was the Rebels, and I got those too, and I ended up building a lightsaber in my high school woodshop class freshman year with like a lathe and fastening a lightsaber based upon the technical diagrams of the first one. And yeah, so I was thinking I was paying my dues because I was making my own stuff.
Yeah, dude. The West End Games, I used to have the miniatures.
Yep.
You know, they're like pewter or lead miniatures, and I had
those
had a bunch.
Those
of
were
them.
nice.
They were.
They put a lot of those into the Monopoly Star Wars the first go around too.
Oh, really? Same molds?
Yeah.
I never noticed that.
Okay.
Some were new in that, but like half of them were reused.
Yeah,
okay. I didn't know that. I have that first one. We actually opened it up probably just a couple of years ago.
Fun fact: those are the first miniatures I ever painted. The Star Wars miniatures.
No kidding.
Yeah.
I painted a ton of them too, but I was doing 40K at the time as well, and I remember thinking to myself like, "Oh my God, these are nowhere near as good as the 40K ones, but we must let no one know." But yeah, that like I remember seeing pictures of like you know, that game being played, like if you went to a store and it would have like promotional imagery, and I just like, God, that looks so awesome. But I like had no idea how to play, and I don't think I had any of the rules to it. So like, you know, we would just make up our own rules. That was like almost identical to 40K basically. But yeah.
Do you guys remember the card game? So it was like
the Decipher game.
Was it? There was like they originally
Decipher's
had like
customizable card game.
They had like black border version and then
that's it.
White border version or whatever. I mean, they had like a Star Trek one, and I knew the Star Trek one, but like I tried to read the Star Wars one. I couldn't understand the rules. It was crazy. It was
No,
like the most complicated thing I've ever
I never
seen.
played that. I had a box set, had the rules and everything. We tried to play it, and it was just not fun. But the cards were cool because they had pictures of everybody, and
Totally.
this was a time where you didn't have that, readily available. So this is the first time you're getting a Ponda Baba, card or something, and that was exciting.
I was like, who's Ponda Baba? But I think that's Walrus Man, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, those were the kind of things. I think I just started collecting a bit of everything. And, actually, during that time, model kits, they had a lot of these model kits. I forget the name of the company, but they had like a silver box with like red lettering. It was like
I remember
AMG or something like that.
They were,
and I made most of those.
Yeah, all the ships, all the ships
them too. But I can't recall the company name, like you're saying.
I forget. Like I made the Falcon. I made Darth Vader's TIE Fighter. I made like the speeder bike guy. I had made a lot of them, and I remember that. I went to Disneyland when I was a freshman in high school, and on in the Star Tours lobby, they had like all these models that it was a different kind of decorating back then. They literally had the models just glued to the wall. It was a fair bit different, production value from now. But I just remember seeing some of those, and they had an A-wing, and I was like, "Oh, that's dope! Oh man, I want that A-wing." But I spent just hours in that in that gift shop because there just wasn't anything. And I like. My sister and her husband, they went to Space Mountain, and I was like, no, I'm cool. Just leave me here. And I just stayed in that place, and I was like looking through the Star Wars Insiders, and I think that's how I kind of gleaned the Dark Empire story, because they had put some of those comics in the Star Wars Empire or Star Wars Insiders. And yeah, so I mean, it was just we had to scratch, just to get anything.
Yeah.
During that stint, right?
There's also there's something, 90s. Yeah, for sure. And there's also like this thing about it where like everything that you would get, you had all this kind of like intimate time with it before something else came out. Or like I honestly, I don't feel like I have that now. Like all these books come out, like the making ofs and the art and the visual dictionaries and the one, just a Han Solo book just came out like not too long ago, and I have them all. But like I haven't had the time to really get familiar with it, because like by the time I start looking through it, the next thing is coming out. Yeah.
I think it's also being an adult.
Yeah, no, you're right.
Estimate the power of being busy and having kids.
Yeah, you're right. You're right.
Yeah, I mean, like I don't even, I don't get, any. I don't get any books these days. I was thinking about getting the art of The Last Jedi. Because it's cheap, it's dirt cheap.
Dude, all those art books are amazing. They do a great job with that. Like they just fill it with tons and tons and tons of stuff.
Yeah,
right. And I think that's the kind of thing that I don't want to read through. Like the encyclopedia.
Right.
Like before I really wanted to. When I was younger,
yeah.
I just wanted to read through the whole thing. But yeah, it's a different animal now.
So, what was your kind of reaction to the changes? I know you spoke about the fan base, but what was your reaction to the changes in the special edition?
My buddy took me to the first one, yeah, it was fine. I enjoyed it. I was okay. I realized that, I didn't really have the patience to watch it, in the theater, since I've seen the movie so many times. And I was just like, oh, okay. I'm like, these, I'm so used to watching these in the background that it actually took a lot of concentration to actually watch the movie. But the stuff they put in was, I enjoyed it. I didn't, CG. I mean, it seemed appropriate for the time. In hindsight, I mean, it looks like garbage, or at least the first Jabba looked like hot garbage.
Oh, it does.
If you look at it, and then they they read them and did them in the DVDs, and I think even more so in the Blu-rays or something like that.
I put up a picture of that recently on the Force Sensitive, a comparison of the 97 special edition, the 2004 DVD, which I think that DVD was using the Episode 1 model for Jabba. Neither of them looked good, but they had two chances and a third chance with the Blu-ray, and I'll always go to this one. Instead of fixing the things that needed the fixing, that would have been a third time for that. We get Obi-Wan yelling at Tusken Raiders because the last dozen sounds they used for him weren't good enough.
I don't. Didn't they tried to match that with the dragon that he was riding in Episode 3 or something like that?
They did do that on one of the releases, and I thought that was fine. That was still better.
At least it makes sense because the point of reference he's using.
Yeah. Right.
But then
okay, so it had its times. I mean, and honestly, it all just kind of blends together now. And maybe I'm blocking it out, a little bit, but because you're just conditioned so many times. Like those movies were my babysitter as a kid so many times.
But there's a thing to that. You have so many versions. At some point, I'm going to start wondering if the Jawas are actually saying dink dink. Like, I don't know.
Yeah. It's it just kind of in memory. It's just hard to remember. What's what. But So I saw the first one. It was fine. I actually skipped Empire in the movies, the special edition one.
Really?
Yeah, and it ended up biting me in the ass because I wanted to see Jedi because there was the Luke figure opening night, which I don't know if anybody remembers.
But, a special sticker on the card.
Oh yeah. Very valuable, very valuable. But I ended up, I think my dad was a barber, and I think I ended up getting the haircut first. And the theater was like spitting distance from his barber shop. So, me and Buddy were hanging out there, chatting up with my dad, and then I'm like, yeah, let's roll over to the place. And I think my buddy was like, we should probably get going. I'm like, oh, okay, well, whatever. It's Star Wars. Like nobody's a fan of Star Wars. Like I'm the only one. Right. And we went there, and the line was super long, and I'm like, whoa, this was unexpected. And my buddy's like, yeah, when we went to Empire, it was about this long. I'm like, oh, why didn't you tell me? and so I ended up not getting the figure. I was pissed off throughout the whole run of Jedi. And then people started quoting the movie behind me. And I was just like, I hate you people. I hate you.
Yeah. Dude, I can't. I told you, my wife, she can tolerate most of it. It's when I do R2's beeps that she loses her mind. She's like, look, we can't do the beeps. We can't do the beeps, okay?
It's like, look, I could quote the movie too, but I mean, like, we're in a public place.
Yeah, no, I get it.
The Jedi, the obvious turnoffs were the music scene.
Yeah.
Sure. I love Loppy Neck,
Yeah, dude.
It's just ingrained as part of that scene, and then they did this whole big production number, and it's just out of place.
I got some
in the whole movie, and then they did like the world music ending. Sorry. Did I?
Well, yeah. All right. So let's discuss. First of all, just in regard to Lafty Neck, I've mentioned it before, but I got some sick SoundCloud remixes of it. Hit me up if you need them. But secondly, I do like the music change at the end of Jedi. I do like that one. Like there's something I still like Yub Yub and all that shit. I mean, don't get me wrong, but like.
But there was a Yub Nub reference like somewhere recently.
But like there's something bigger, broader, and more of an accomplishment about the music used in the special edition than it's grander. Do you know what I mean? Like,
I agree.
Yeah,
I
so
agree.
I do like it in that regard, but I like them both. It's not like Lapty Neck where like I specifically like this one and specifically do not like this one. It's like I enjoy the other two for different reasons.
I think it's just comfort food. I mean, I think that's what it comes down to, is that like we're the generation where, VHS players, like that was new technology.
Yeah.
And people realized that you could just babysit a kid by popping in, the VHS. And I'm the prime example of that. Like I've seen those movies hundreds of times. Like it would be scary to to actually do a count, but
I don't know if that'd be possible.
It's just comfort food. Like, and later on, when latchkey kids, you have a generation of latchkey kids. I was one. You know what went in there? When the cartoons were over, Star Wars. And it was just comfort food. I mean, that's what it ends up being. And then I think that there's the whole there's the generation after us, and they grew up with the prequel DVDs.
Yeah.
And my son has watched the prequels, maybe not as many times as me, but maybe near.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I think that people are just turned off with the changes just because they're because it's their comfort food. If you change that recipe even the slightest bit, it's not the same thing. And I think that's what people react adversely to.
Yeah.
But being an adult, you kind of get where people are coming from. And, I get that, George has always, used the technology as a test bed to, fund new ventures
for sure.
Lucasfilm and that's, I think that we've benefited for that.
I agree.
The whole industry.
I'm also concerned though that like some of those things that we like hold so near and dear to our heart in regard to memory and then memory being a tricky beast. Like, I wonder if some of these folks actually went back and watched the original versions and would be like, "Oh God, the new ones are better." Like, like the new ones are better, but it's just that they changed a few things. Because like I don't know, man. Like the world in the special editions just seems so much larger. And don't get me wrong, there's a charm to it feeling, cheap, like the originals felt. But like I always bring this one up as the example, but like just opening up Cloud City. It's just like it's a no-brainer. It wins all day long. Stuff like seeing the Falcon rise up out of Mos Eisley, like it's just so much better that way, So I don't know, and I wonder how like some of those laser bolts and stuff hold up now if you were to like actually look at the original, because I haven't seen the original versions in forever.
Hit and miss. Some looks better than others, and they didn't change a lot of it for the special edition either. Some of the scenes are replaced entirely, though. That's a different.
Well, they definitely didn't change up Obi-Wan and Darth Vader's lightsaber fight.
They've done touch-ups on it, but they never fixed it the way that they needed to. There's that that moment where Obi-Wan points the saber at the screen and you just
that's exactly
don't
what I'm
see
talking
anything.
About.
It's gone.
Yeah. It's like, whoa. That was something that was glaring to me when watching the special edition. I'm like,
but we've had Han glitch out and maybe not have shot put.
What is that? The Wreck-It Ralph. He just glitched. He's got that superpower where he
Gort and
dodges a bullet from 3 feet away.
Gort and Shoulders were here hanging out the other morning, and we were talking about like little changes they made, and that one where like Vader is leaving Cloud City, and we were talking. We're pretty sure that scene wasn't there at all initially, and then it was. They show him walking, and it says, "Bring my shuttle." And
I'm a bring my shuttle guy.
See, like, I like that. Alert my Star Destroyer to prepare for my arrival. Like that's one of my favorite things.
I can make a case for bring my shuttle, but I get why they did the and believe me, he sounds cooler than the polar bear's toenails. When he's saying that.
Yeah.
But like, and the reason they did it is because they're trying to make up that for that time, right? It's like, well, he needs to have his shuttle there now because they're taking off. He's not going to get there in time.
Right.
But that "bring my shuttle," it just has like this hate and vitriol.
Yeah.
In his voice, where he's pissed off that his plan did not go down the way that he wanted. His kid basically was like, "Nope,
yeah, no,
I'm jumping to my death versus joining you."
Trust me, it's good. I like it as well, but I also think that you put James Earl Jones with that voice effect over his voice, and I could hear him do a Taylor Swift song and be 100% okay with it.
Totally. Totally. I just get that, like they did that revision, for like the technical nature of it.
Yeah.
And it doesn't bother me.
There's something about the to prepare for my arrival, and I always equate that to like he's just been killing all these officers all movie. Do you know what I mean? So like it's almost like him giving them like a little heads up, like, "Hey man, I'm coming. Please have your shoes shined and stuff, because like I don't want this to be an issue. I've got bigger fish to fry today than killing you guys."
Just you get that look
I
on.
I never thought about it that way.
You get the look on Fiat's face at the end of the movie. He's just looking like, shit.
He's like,
my ticket's getting punched today. I just know it.
He's like, okay, I think he's like, okay, I need to go scrape my drawers out. No. He's really surprised that he's alive at the end of that thing.
I love how Vader's like, oh, it doesn't matter if I kill 30 of them. They're still going to screw this up. Like I'm not even going to go through the effort of killing this guy because it's not worth it, because the next guy's just going to fail me too. Like this guy, we need a whole new training regimen here is what we need. So,
oh man, that's the best part of Empire. just Vader killing officers,
just left and right. Apology accepted.
Like, I think that in the widescreens, like you can see two things, and one thing was mentioned. One was one of the guys, you could see him getting blown up because the asteroid hits their brain.
Right.
But then the other one, I think he's just getting choked out, and it's just like an afterthought.
Mm-hmm.
Like Vader's just like, he just turns around like I think what the scene is, the blocking is that somebody comes in to tell him something, but like there's an officer over on the left hand side just getting choked out for whatever reason.
And I love how he just starts talking to the next person, like
exactly, like look, this is nothing.
Yeah, no, I put this guy dying in the background. That's just me on autopilot. I got something new to talk to you about. There's a lot of his like that movie is really what solidifies him as being the badass, because like the little things, like I say it all the time in my house, like he's as clumsy as he is stupid. Like it's just so matter of fact. Like he just thinks so poorly of all of them. Like he just hires these bounty hunters because he doesn't think his whole crew can do the job. Like it's just, the dude is, and he does it right in front of him. He doesn't care what you think. Like he's like, yep, no, I don't have enough faith in you, or I'm going to bring in this lizard guy and this fat boy and a couple droids to get this job done.
Kids, pay attention. This is this is good info.
Yeah. So let's get into Shadows of the Empire a bit. How did that hit for you?
Okay, so got the book. Couldn't pronounce Homeboy's name.
Yeah, me neither.
Scissors.
Lord Scissors is getting on.
Like Z.
It doesn't matter what his name is. He's in charge of Black Sun. Yeah. Let's go.
So it was like, anyway, I couldn't even figure out, but I mean, like this guy was supposed to be like hot stuff, and I don't even. It's not even on my radar. I don't even remember it. I think nothing got accomplished.
Did you play the game?
Still in Carbonite.
Did you play the game as well?
Okay, so I'd backed away from video games, so I've never had a 64 and had 64 to myself, but my neighbors across the street had that, and I'd go over there often to hang out, so I did play. I remember like the snow scene mostly, and then maybe just getting frustrated with some like train jumping. That was it.
I do remember that. So I wanted to say that one thing, like I got two things to talk about regarding this. One is that I remember I didn't know how to pronounce his name until I got the audiobook, and then I was like, oh. And then also when I saw the toy of him, I was like, that's what he looks like? Homeboy looks dumb.
Yeah, I didn't spend any money on that toy, and but my buddy, who was a kleptomaniac,
right,
he just ended up stealing it for me.
Oh.
He just thought I'd like it.
I always thought he had a cool look.
Thanks.
He's just a green dude, but I liked what he was wearing. He looked
really
like there's a royalness to him. He's a prestige in his criminal organization. He's wearing that's fancy Star Wars clothes.
Yeah, you're right. It never hit for me. I was like,
I'm not saying it doesn't look a little stupid, but it just like I just went with it.
Fancy Star Wars clothes.
I just thought it's like, okay, he's the badass.
Yeah.
Great. It was like all the tropes of a badass, like an unpronounceable name, a killer sidekick, leader of an organization that's doing shady stuff.
It's also Shadows of the Empire that kind of started the tradition of inconsequential Star Wars books. Like a ton of other books started coming out.
It did come
that.
After the Truce at Bakura.
You mean all of them?
Well, no, because like there were some things. I was like there were some things later on that we got that did have consequence. Like I remember what is it, Dark Apprentice or whatever, the during the Clone War era with Dooku and Yoda. Like there's a whole bunch of stuff there that explores that world. The fact that what was it, Return to Tatooine or Tatooine's Ghost, I think it was called, where you find out that R2 has been documenting the story from the original time and was able to give Luke all of the info on it. Like that has consequence to how Luke carries. Cool. There was a lot of that, but especially in the kind of revamped Star Wars era, like the Disney era, for lack of a better term. There are a ton of books that have absolutely no consequence. They introduce some new characters, and there's consequence to those characters, and that's it.
I don't think they can because because they're just trying to do this stuff on the fly, and right. I think we can have the sequel discussion, and
yes,
whether or not JJ can pull it off, which I really want him to.
Yeah.
But I really have my doubts. I mean, have you guys seen Lost?
So I haven't. Mm-hmm. So I can never have a valid opinion on it, and I get that. But when people tell me about their journey with Lost, and then they tell me like the end twist of it, I'm like, that sounds good to me. But it must just be because I didn't live it. It has to be the answer because everybody feels the exact same way about it. You never come across the one guy that's like, no, loved it, perfect. It's always the same vibe. So it has to be something about living through it that didn't sound satisfying. But to me, I'm like, that sounds actually pretty cool to me.
Yeah. Well, the thing about it is that like JJ is a good. I don't know if we're just getting off track or if we want to cover anything else.
Yeah, let's save it. Let's save it for when we get to the sequels because you got a lot. I feel like you got a lot you want to talk about regarding that. So I want to get to that. So let's go into the prequel era.
Okay, so prequels saw. I wasn't planning on seeing it opening night, but I ended up just kind of swinging by the theater because I heard it was already sold out from some of my coworkers, but I just took a chance and got opening night tickets. So ended up getting that for me and a few of my coworkers, and then we saw that. Nobody knew that Palpatine was the Emperor. That was my takeaway.
Yeah, me too.
That was my takeaway. I was just like, I think I only knew it from The Last Command. Maybe mentioned his name. Palpatine, and like because Luke was like looking up some records or something like that, and like that's how I knew. But
it is like I did know his name was Palpatine, and I don't know why. And I just learned. I don't even think. I just learned probably in the last 5 years or so that his first name was Shiv or Shiv or whatever it is.
Exactly.
That's a new thing.
I don't think it was invented until recently.
But real fast on that. People get real wrapped up in who Snoke is, but up until that point of the prequels, we didn't know much, and people don't know the Palpatine.
Not a clue.
But it was not a problem.
Nobody cared.
Now it's a big problem that we don't know who Snoke is.
I agree.
But he got cut in half, so fuck him.
It's some kind of problem. It's first world problems. I don't know. It's YouTube problems.
He's half the man he used to be.
He's got a broken hand as well.
Yeah.
It's going to take some time to recover from that one.
Yeah, for sure.
So yeah, saw that one, and then the Obi-Wan Darth Maul battle was dope. Like when they went at it, like the hair on my head stood up. It's like, oh.
Dude, that scene where he does that backflip and grabs that droid head with the Force and slams it into that button on the wall to open up the doors behind him as he like kind of continues this flow of motion to fight them is one of my favorite moments in Star Wars, period.
Ray Park was he's a pretty bad dude.
Yeah, for sure.
And that guy seems like, he might have some personal problems or whatever, but he seems like a really super nice guy.
Yeah, he was awesome when we met him. He was going to the bathroom.
That he's, I think he had some injuries or something, but I'm really glad that he's, that he was able to reprise the role in Solo.
Yeah, me too.
So episode 1, it was fine. I don't think it was what anybody expected. People asked me like, how it was. I was like, it was okay.
So you didn't hate it?
No. I mean, it was slightly disappointing, but whatever. And I didn't know true disappointment until I watched episode 2.
See, I was so rabid for a Star Wars movie. It took me a long time to see the faults in one. Like, it took me a long time, longer than it should have. Like, I remember going to it like on my 12th viewing in the theater with my buddy Mario. We used to just go because we had nothing to do. Like, what do you want to do? You want to get something to eat? Like, I just ate. What about episode 1? Yeah, let's go do it. And like, just go watch episode 1 again. But like, we used to sit there like and try to justify lines. Like I remember when they were talking about how the Gungans were gonna get wiped out or whatever, and Jar Jar's like, I don't think so. I was like, yeah, he doesn't think so. He doesn't think so. You don't know the depths of that army. Like trying to make it so.
I don't think so.
I don't think he thinks much.
But like that was us
he's
trying.
He's like
trying to make something out of it.
Speak English.
Yeah.
God. Yeah, this English thing, there's this basic thing down. So Clone Wars was, it was the first time I ever cheated on my now wife. I went and saw it by myself in the theater.
Right.
And then like we were supposed to go see it, and then I just ended up watching it because the opening day there was a final. I had a final the day after. And I just remember being in class, and these two dudes were like, "Oh, and Yoda," and they'd obviously not studied for the final, and they ended up, they were watching Star Wars, at midnight the night before. I was super jealous.
If you ever need a support group, I cheated on my wife with Game of Thrones season 7. So if you ever want to have that talk,
I mean, no, me and her, we live different lives in media now. I mean, it's not even. It's like totally separate.
But so let me ask you this: like, so I get the feeling that you were not taken away by Attack of the Clones. But it was
fine,
right?
It was, but it was obviously the cheesiest one, and it was just a far stretch when Anakin loses he commits genocide, and I was like, oh wow, the turn happens in this one. Yeah. He's full dark side now, and then she's like, no, it's okay, I'm here with you. It's like, genocide isn't enough to be like, this guy's a creep.
Well, I think genocide might be a stretch. I mean, we're talking about one tribe.
Yeah, maybe double digits. Yeah, genocide's got to be like triple digits.
Well, what does he qualify then? Like some kind of serial killer there? Or it's a mass
murderer.
A mass slicing.
Yeah, mass murder.
Yeah. Maybe she's just like the downest chick in the galaxy. I mean,
I did. Yeah, I like her already. But I did get the vibe that like I did like to see like the little like cultural elements of the Sand People, like their huts and the wives and the women rather, and the babies
and the children
and the children too. They're animals. But dude, do you think he slaughtered those dogs?
Oh yeah,
definitely.
Dude, he doesn't mention it. He might have let him go.
I just think that he might have thought that was a little bit too much to let her know.
It's like, she's never gonna look at me the same way if I killed the dogs.
It's like animals. I mean, like she might think they're puppies. I think we were playing with puppies over on her home world. Maybe she's not cool with that.
Dude, I still like that scene. I like that little montage too, where it's like it's all Anakin cast against like the silhouette, and he's like walking up to the Jawa to get information, and his silhouette kind of looks like Vader because of like the ponytail in the back. Like, I dig that a lot.
Big intent there. Yeah,
that was like really well put together. And, and that was good. I think just some of the dialogue in the movie wasn't great.
Was it the Force fruit?
And I think, that's. I think they covered that well enough on Robot Chicken. I mean,
the Force fruit. She was killing.
She was dressing like a dominatrix.
Yeah, and, she killed that black dress though, Mac.
Yeah, of course. But it was like, no, we can't. Dressing like a dominatrix or something. It's like tad bit of mixed signals, lady.
Yeah.
Maybe she blamed herself for the mixed signals. When he killed all those sand people.
Yeah, dude, that's George Lucas for you. When he walks into he's checking off the outfits, and he's like, "Oh yeah, let's go with this one. I'm getting a good vibe from this one."
He's like highlighting all over it.
Oh, it's so good. What about what about the seeing the Jedi? Like, I remember that being like a really visceral moment for me. Like, all of a sudden there's like Jedi everywhere, and of course when you go back and watch them now, and they're just kind of like swinging blindly at things, it kind of looks silly. But
see out of the masks.
But yeah, but I in the theater, like the theatrical experience, I think I was overtaken by it.
Oh yeah, no, I remember that. I loved it. I just couldn't get enough of it. I just wanted to see, all that. There was just so much going on, and I think it was one of the first times that you really saw like something put together digitally that was that complex.
Yeah,
like it was an achievement, and that was just super. That was like just how do you say, like a Star Wars fan's dream come true. Mm-hmm. An army of Jedi. They kind of got taken out like a little bit too easily. In my opinion.
Some of them did. Like, it's like, well, how strong? Wait, the Roger guys got them. What is going on?
It's like, yeah, I mean, like, it's like I heard of the B team, but I mean, like, you guys are like the F team. I don't know.
It's like that. I always go back to that Mace in the when they like storm the Chancellor's office or whatever, and there's somebody that made the joke that was like, he was like, yeah, I just found out that Palpatine is the Sith Lord. I need the 3 best Jedi Masters to come with me. Sorry, Mace, we don't have 3 Jedi. All right, just give me any 3 Jedi Masters to any 3 will do. What about Yoda pulling the lightsaber? How was that for you? Because people are split on it.
What's funny is, I didn't even say like how much I got into like Dark Forces, the game, and that actually, like there was like tools where you can make pixel art for that game. Do you guys remember that, like the first person shooter?
Yeah, I remember the game. It was only like a PC game, right?
Right, but that was like the first kind of thing, and that was like right on the heels of Doom. And
right.
It was Star Wars, and it had music. And that was awesome. So I'd actually made some pixel art stuff. I made a Han Solo in Carbonite, and I made an animation of a Yoda with his lightsaber falling out of his cane or whatever. And so my thoughts about that Yoda thing are a little bit clouded by that, because it looked like almost the same concept that I did. And I was all like,
like, who owes me a check for this?
I'm like, hey, somebody saw my work. But then they actually ended up doing that with Darth Maul in the Rebels, I think it was. He had like a cane attached to his lightsaber. But no, I mean, like it was par for the course, like it was overdone, but I think that they were just in the business of giving, fan service. I think that Clone Wars, it was just kind of all fan service, with kind of a lack of story at the end of the day.
Are you talking about, when you say Clone Wars, you're talking about Attack of the Clones? Or are you talking
about,
okay,
sorry.
Okay.
Yeah,
no, I'm just making sure
Clones,
because I was getting ready to take you to test on that one.
Yeah.
But yeah, what about so Gort's favorite part of that scene is all the Yoda screaming, and I was curious.
My puppets.
Put your tongue to mine. But
I just thought that they kind of got, like, Obi-Wan and Anakin just kind of got their asses handed to them with the quickness.
Yeah.
I was like, yeah, really, guys, you couldn't put up much of a better fight than that? Okay. All right.
They blew the choreography budget on the digital Republic gunships and all that.
Well, also on that scream effect.
Well, someone had to spend, all day and night mixing it for 3 weeks. It had to sound perfect.
Right, but I just felt
That's so funny to me, man. Oh God.
Well, oh geez, when you watch the
put a little more
features
in it.
No. His cape needs to be totally unrealistic, and it needs to look like a kung fu movie that you've never seen.
But I that flip, all the flipping and stuff. That stuff worked for me, and it still works for me. I know it seems to be a bit much for some people, but it still works for me. I'm like, I don't get that. I really I objectively don't see the issue with it. Like, I think that it would have been worse if he was just standing there like fighting. It's the flips that made him seem threatening. Like, you just don't know where that blow could come from, so to speak.
It's a little goofy, but I think it's just a matter of slightly dated CGI. And funny enough, where it happens to look better with arguably worse CG anything is the Clone Wars cartoon.
Yeah.
It flows better there.
So, what about Revenge of the Sith?
Okay, so I think that one it did a lot of redeeming of the what the Clone Wars dropped.
Yeah.
The first scene, the starfighters going over the Star Destroyer was pretty awesome, and it just opens up into that whole like huge battle. Mm-hmm. And I just was amazed the first time I saw that. But then, it kind of gets into some, antics, on the ship.
Real quick, let me talk about that for a second. You know what's interesting is that that's like the first time that a space battle seemed three-dimensional.
Totally.
Totally.
Like it was like, it doesn't need to be this kind of, two-dimensional type
left versus right thing.
Right. And they're even saying that like the ships would just line up next to each other, like pirate, like how do you say, like cannons back in the day.
Right.
Seeing the shells coming out of those cannons they had. That's probably one of the coolest things in that whole scene.
Yeah, that was cool.
But they were doing it, in 3 dimensions, and that was, it just those things were lining up every which way. It was just really awesome, just kind of going through it. Yeah, that's
a good scene.
Right, but I mean, I like episode 3 just because it's just this gold mine of quotes. I mean, it's just so over the top, and I think that I think that Ian McDiarmid. I mean, after. I just think he was just like, it's my time.
Yeah, dude,
like, this is gonna be the last one, so I'm just
this is my moment.
Exactly.
Dude, and, I still I say it all the time. Like, if my kids come down and they'll be like, can I have my snack now? And I'll be like, no. And they'll be like, you said I could have a snack if I ate at lunch. And I'm like, I am the Senate.
There's just so many good lines, man.
It's perfect. I mean, it has. I think that's something that's important, man, for Star Wars. Like, because 4, 5, 6, and in 3 definitely have it. but it's those one-liner memorable quotes that just become part of the ether of like nerd dialogue, and
Oh, totally.
and
it's a yeah, you use that stuff to kind of immediately get on the same page.
Yeah,
with
exactly.
the company that I'm working at during the interview, we kind of mutually dropped some Star Wars quotes, and I was just like, okay,
dude, isn't that an awkward
I know
little
who
dance?
you are.
Isn't that an awkward little dance like to have with people, like where you're like you like drop a line and then you can see and they drop a line and then you're like, oh, like I feel like Michelangelo, like I'm like a fellow chucker, eh? Like I remember I was at the mopping job, like I was sitting at the table one day and somebody brought out like some lunch and it was seafood and it had that like day old seafood smell and I was like, oh, I thought they smelled bad on the outside. And and the guy who was eating it like looked up to me and was like you could see it in his face that he, like, you know what I mean? Like he was like you too, like, and then like later on in the day he like pulled me aside like because I was new. And he was like, "Hey man, you like Star Wars?" And I was like, "Dude, I love Star Wars." He's like, "I love it too." And like, then, like we were able to have like it was such a funny little thing. Anyway,
right.
But yeah. So did you find, because 3 had to, 3 was in the same position, as adult fans. I don't feel like kids feel the same way at all, which is why it always works 20 years later. But as adult fans, 3 is in the same way, was in the same place that 9 is now in, where people were having that conversation of can 3 tie it together? Can 3 make it work? And how do you feel like it did that?
I think it did its job.
I do too.
I mean, I've always felt that, yeah, okay, like it was over. You know what? They closed it out and they did it. And I think was that before or after Return of the King?
After.
Because I felt like it was after.
Yeah, I think it's
because
after.
Yeah, it's
Return
after.
of the King had like 5 endings. And this one just had 1, which was good enough. It was like, hey, at least it wasn't 5.
Yeah.
At least they wrapped it up well. Not to say that Return of the King wasn't good. I mean,
No, of course not. But I know what you mean.
That just the ending was a bit long-winded. And this one, I just felt that they did it efficiently.
And it had that it had that operatic Star Wars-y kind of ending with like the montage and the music and the all of these things are kind of happening and at one time.
Right, and they tied it in with the Death Star and everything, and a little shout out to Tarkin.
Yeah, and also, dude, the that end fighting sequence, like I don't feel like. Just because the prequels have this place in history with this the CGI and all of that, but like there is this beauty of the fight between Obi-Wan and Anakin being intercut with the fight between Yoda and Sidious, and it's like this fight for the Force and this fight for control of the galaxy that's kind of simultaneously happening, and it's like it's just so Star Wars to me, like that podium rising up through the middle of the Senate with the 2 people fighting for control of the Senate over top of it, like it's and the music is hitting, and everything is kind of that those big moments that just feels right to me.
Right, the big stakes, it's all kind of coming together and happening simultaneously. Like kind of one's mirroring the other.
Yeah, dude, Yoda walking in and slamming those 2 guards against the wall with just that little wave is like the greatest thing ever. Like he just walks in, and it's like
because you always wondered about those guys with their force pikes and whatnot. And you're just like, it's like ever since Jedi, and you're just like, oh man, aren't these guys like secretly just badasses? And I think I think maybe Rebels like did something. Yeah, when I think they were trying to capture Kanan or something like that, and their pikes actually were like the Force. They were like hovering.
Yeah.
Or something. But I think the Yoda thing was much more satisfying.
I also love the my little green friend.
Just the trash talk was on point. I mean, I just loved it, and I think you said that's Palpatine in his element.
Yeah,
he's that's the well laid plan.
Yeah, finally
You know?
coming to fruition. Like he played the long game, and this is it.
Yep.
I will say though that one moment where Yoda pushes him and he like flies over the desk into the chair onto the ground has a Three Stooges vibe that I can't quite put my finger on. But there's something like it's supposed to not feel goofy, and it feels a little goofy.
Well, it just needs the banana peel sound.
Right. Whoop. So look, we got about a half hour left, and I want to make sure that we touch on this sequel era and this JJ stuff. So I want to kind of skip ahead, and if we have time, we'll kind of touch on something else. But so continue your thought with JJ, with what JJ's good at, and etc.
Well, I like his stuff, and I think he's good at laying out the mystery box.
Yeah.
He even have you guys seen his TED Talk?
I have not.
Okay. So he talks about the mystery box, and I'm sure you know what it is.
Yeah.
It's just creating, and Star Wars has had it's done this, 1,000 generations of Jedi Knights.
Right.
You fought in the Clone Wars, and just like these things that just spark your imagination.
Yeah.
And and that's what he laced all this stuff into episode 7. So it's just the grounds were fertile and rich for imagination to spark. And he's really good at that.
Yeah.
So no doubt episode 7 is great. And somebody else did episode 8. I don't think that JJ was expecting that he would have to finish the job.
No,
I think he's like,
he certainly wasn't.
I laid all this out. Somebody else can pick it up.
Yeah.
And he would I think he consulted with the Ryan Johnson on the second one, and he's just kind of like, okay, sounds good to me. Not my problem anyway.
Right.
And then it ended up being his problem. And so I think it's a very good opportunity for him to shine.
I agree.
And I really hope that he can close it. But I do have my reservations about it. Regardless of that fact, I'm ready to say that episode 8 might be my favorite Star Wars movie.
Ooh, those are big words. So there's a lot you said there that I want to kind of dig into a little bit. So let me start with JJ, and then we'll go back to 8. So with what you said, with having some reservations as to whether or not he can kind of fulfill this story. What to you? And I have my own list for sure. So it's not a testing of you, but what for you needs to be explained or wrapped up or really summarized for this to be successful for you?
Well, we already know, and spoilers, anybody, fast forward 30 seconds,
right?
Starting now, Rey's parentage will be addressed.
Correct.
And that's recent, and I got that from, a Twitter something, which, I don't think I should have seen, but whatever. But it will be. So done and done. I'm not very high maintenance when it comes to this stuff.
Uh-huh.
It just needs to be good.
Okay.
I mean, I don't really care about Snoke.
Mm-hmm. Right.
It was never anything that was. I never invested myself in theories, and I think a lot of this has to do with the mystery box element. Is that it sparks the imagination, but it's a double-edged sword because
people get committed to their ideas.
Exactly, and nobody wants to admit they're wrong, and people, especially when they put that stuff out there on YouTube, like Star Wars theorists, they end up getting disappointed or publicly humiliated when their idea doesn't pan out. And then, they got people following them, and kind of people, they hear things and then they just kind of go with that.
Yeah.
especially, I think especially people that are just kind of fair weather fans.
Yeah.
And we are in a boom. We're definitely in a boom.
1,000%.
And there's just so much of it on the market. And, I think people are ready to be over it. Like, the Marvel movies, or comic book movies in general, people were like, well, I'm tired. I mean, like, when's this going to end? And it's like, well, the people that really want it, they're not having that conversation.
Right.
There's no fatigue there. It's just that, you want to be cool, because being nerds cool now. But it's like, no, if you really like it, you don't want to see it end, and you're going to invest, you're how do you say, you're not going to be that fickle.
Yeah.
Just kind of.
So
I forgot what the initial point was.
Well, no. So I guess like Ray's parents or Ray's origins kind of is something that everybody feels like we need to know the story there. So and it's going to be addressed. So we feel confident in the fact that it's going to be addressed. How that is addressed, whether that's satisfying or not, is anybody's guess. But it's something that you need touched on, and I agree. Is there anything? Is there anything else that you need? Like one of the things I was most happy about to hear is that they're going to address how the First Order began, and like I need that. I still don't understand it totally.
I thought just the First Order was like remnants of the Empire that came back into the fray to seize power. But I guess they would have had to have submitted to the New Republic and say our bad.
And Snoke, how did Snoke get mixed up with it? And you know what I mean? Like, I just feel like there's some mystery to that, and it could be just as easy as the Empire had to hide in the outer reaches, which was right by Snoke's house, and Snoke just walked over and took control of it, and I'm good with that. But explain it to me. Let me know.
Can I borrow some sugar and some Star Storage?
Yeah. It's like,
I think I think that it would be good to understand that kind of background, and especially like how Ben was seduced.
Yeah.
And kind of how that went down, because we have that that Rashomon account where it's it's like he said she said of Luke and him, and it'd be interesting to see the background and like how that fit in with Leia and that kind of thing.
And I feel like I mean, I know that we need to know Rey's story and all, but I almost feel like Kylo is the character that we really need to like unpack in this movie. Like he is the linchpin.
I think the whole what girl thing, like it sounds like he knows.
Yep.
He knew her.
Yeah.
And all this stuff is like it's laid out, and it should be addressed.
I agree.
mean, I don't think that they necessarily need to hit on 100% of it, but I think it just needs to make sense.
Yeah.
And they need to make it make sense in the context of what they have now, which is the Last Jedi. And
so let's transition into that.
So I don't necessarily need. I'm not relying on episode 9 to be good. Let's put it that way.
Okay.
Like I don't expect it to be good. I'm
really?
setting my expectations low. Well, it's just I'm setting my expectations low.
Okay.
If you set your expectations low, then you're not going to be disappointed. So
there's truth to that, and then just the same, if you walk into something, you might get that very pleasant surprise.
Right.
Exactly. And the thing is that when JJ starts things, it's a double-edged sword, because it provokes all this imagination, but there's also an expectation. So you're also raising expectations.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of all that kind of mystery that was laid down in Lost, that they didn't touch on a lot of it, or it was like broad strokes over it, and they never, they didn't resolve a lot of stuff in that. but just minor things though, very minor. But I think people focus on those minor things, and that's the double-edged sword of the mystery box that that JJ puts out there. So whether or not he can deliver on those kind of expectations that have been set up, that's something that remains to be seen. So do I need episode 9 to be to make sense in the context of episode 8? No, I think I'm good with episode 8 is pretty good, and in that it's realistic. I mean, the whole thing with Luke and how he's never been this great Jedi. Maybe in people's minds, but I mean, I think I've heard you say this in the past. He's always been a screw up. In my words, he's been a whiny bee.
Yeah.
Throughout the whole thing. Not to say that he wasn't my favorite, character or the most relatable character, because definitely, when I was going through adolescence, Empire, like I could relate to him. Mm-hmm. I wasn't falling in love at that time. I wasn't romantically involved. Maybe Han's story would have been a little bit more relevant to me had that been the case. But no, I was like, confused, adolescent. Yeah. And just kind of what Luke was going through was like a little bit closer, something that I could relate to. And he's never, he was never a badass, and he screwed up the Jabba's the rescue of Han from Jabba.
Yeah, absolutely.
He definitely screwed up in Empire. He got himself into a whole mess of trouble there.
Quite the pickle.
Yep. And I'm endangering the mission. I shouldn't have come. Like he's quick to blame himself. Like he's quick to take self-blame. Like it's part of his nature. So let me ask you, I'm in a similar boat where Last Jedi is one of my favorites. It's probably my second favorite Star Wars film. But to Empire. But but those are big words to say for whatever reason these days. And so explain that to me. Explain walking out of Last Jedi, how you felt about it, and then how you may have come to this arrival that it might possibly be your favorite Star Wars film.
Well, I mean, I'm older. Mm-hmm. I've been a senior person in many points of my life. Whether it be like jobs, martial arts or whatever, where I've been a mentor. And some people it'll be like a Ben Solo type of thing, where you can't help some people, and so that's the most realistic part, is that you can lose somebody, and then sometimes due to your like not being a good teacher, so that to me, that strikes true with me. Yeah. Is that is that kind of you have to learn how to teach a lesson, which he ends up doing at the end. He gives him a great like the best lesson. Yeah. And and he does it in a way that his teachers did by messing with him. And he has that swag, that see you around kid swag at the end. And, Yoda teaches Luke a lesson in that, and he laughs at him. He's like, you're always so serious. It's just fun messing with you, Luke. Yeah. and he takes that lesson and he uses it, where he's like, oh yeah, okay, I've got to get my head out my butt.
It's almost like seniority. It's a good point, the seniority element, bringing up like the seniority, the wisdom, the age, and the skill and ability. It gives you the advantage of not having to take it all so seriously. You know?
And you shouldn't. And that's kind of a lesson that I've learned is like, look, people are going to be people. You can't attach your self-worth to whether or not this person is going to succeed because, we've all worked with people who, we loved working with them at the job, but it might have just not been for them.
Right.
And then they're not working there anymore. And, and you invested all this time training them. But, all for naught.
Yeah.
So, sometimes the best way to teach somebody is just live your life and have fun and not be this kind of like serious teacher about it. I mean, I think that the best teachers that we've ever had aren't the strict serious ones. They're the ones who, were able to enjoy life, and you can see them, enjoying it and enjoying their job, enjoying what they do.
Dude, that's a good point, man. It's a really good point. Let me ask you real quick, because we got a little bit more time, and I want to ask you something personally.
Sure.
But before we get to that, the spinoffs. How do you feel about the spinoffs?
Yeah, I mean they've been fine. Rogue One's good. Solo's fine. I enjoyed it. I think it's a victim of having two budgets essentially.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I honestly though, and I tweeted before it. I didn't need to know how the Kessel Run worked.
Yeah, it's a double-edged. Speaking of double-edged swords,
I just think that when you try to over-explain stuff because people are interested in it, or they need that rectified in their mind, I think you're just doing yourself a disservice.
Yeah.
Like some stuff can just go unsaid. Like to me, a lot of episode 7 stuff can go unsaid, which it's fine. I think that sometimes the theater of the mind is better.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think they're functional. So there's only the two, right? There's Solo.
Right. I did have a question. As you were speaking, I was thinking about it. Like when you mentioned the double budgets. YouTube has told me, and I know YouTube is a great teacher. YouTube has told me that Kathy Kennedy is a feminazi, right? So we all know what feminazis like to do. They like to hire two men to direct a movie, and then they get mad at their work, fire them, and then hire another man. I mean, just a feminazi after feminazi. What will they do next? You know what I mean? So the last thing I wanted to kind of touch base with you on is living in Japan. How, and you've only been there for 10 years, but Star Wars has made leaps and bounds in terms of the public consciousness in those 10 years. But just generally, if you were to compare the two, what is it like culturally in Japan, Star Wars versus America?
I want to say that it's universal.
Really?
And the thing is that Star Wars is in a boom, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the boom has also been here. Like my wife was, she used to be embarrassed that I was a Star Wars fan, and then it became acceptable,
right?
at one point, once like the episode 7 hype, started coming out, and then it hasn't died down since then.
Right.
It'll be seasonal or whatnot, but I mean, there's just tons of products, and there's still like a new release of shirts at the at Uniqlo, which is like a cheap fashion place like H&M, right?
Huh.
And there's line, there's just tons of products, and I'd say it's equivalent.
That's interesting. That's interesting to hear, because I would think it wouldn't be. I would think it would be more of a blip there than it is here, where it's like it's definitely a cultural phenomenon here.
And well, I mean, even I don't think the Marvel movies are performing as good here, but there's definitely super fans. I think they call them the Marvel movies American comics.
Huh, that's interesting.
They call them Ame-Komi.
That's
which
interesting.
Are American comics, yeah. It's Ame, is like short for America, and also it sounds similar to candy. So I think it's a little bit of a slant.
I see.
pardon the expression, but yeah, I just think that it's but Star Wars has always been well regarded.
Huh.
So it's Star Wars has always been popular in Japan since the 70s. They just have figures everywhere, and there's just tons of products.
Gotcha. So we still got about 10 minutes. I want to make sure you get as much time as you can. And do you have anything else you'd like to touch on? If not, I can take it somewhere. But if there's anything else that you felt like was a stone left unturned.
Kathy Kennedy. Yeah, you just mentioned Kathy Kennedy.
Yes.
And I don't think that that's where like the turn happened. As far as like where I feel that Star Wars, how do you say, took like a bad turn or betrayed what was done before in like the EU and whatnot. That happened in the Clone Wars series, which I own all of.
Right.
I've watched all of, except maybe the last part of the Lost episodes. So I think a lot of this was they're signing to Kathy Kennedy about, like destroying the EU and all this is like, no, that happened on George's watch. He decided that he wanted to make an animated show, and they basically pillaged what was what already happened in the EU. Like,
it's true.
I know this sounds super badass, but my favorite book was called The Courtship of Princess Leia.
Really?
It's a super masculine title.
Dude,
sounds like a romance novel.
I read that book and was anxious the entire time. Like, you leave Solo's girl alone.
But the thing is that they had like all this stuff in there. Like there's this like crashed Jedi ship, and you're finding about all this stuff, and like that's when you're exposed to the witches of Dathomir.
Yes.
But
big
turnaround
in the Clone Wars show.
Yeah, because they were riding Rancors.
Yep. Oh, that book's got one of the coolest covers ever.
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
Like that book had just like this awesome amount of content, and they just pillaged it in the show, and it was just kind of like, okay, it is what it is. Not going to say anything bad about it, but if you're talking about something, messing with the EU, that's it happened then.
Yeah, I mean, and that's a very like kind of like pinpoint example, and it's an obscure example, and you're 100% right. But I mean, you can take that if you want to go down that road, not you specifically, but
there's a ton of examples.
It tramples over what the EU did during the Clone War era, like
this is something
the novels,
that came up.
I didn't read any of those books. Yeah,
it bulldozes them. It has no regard for them whatsoever.
This is something that came up on the 200th episode of Nerd Rage, and people talking about how Disney trampled, but they didn't. It had already been done.
Yeah, George just doesn't have any regard for the lore. He's just like, oh, I didn't create it. Well, tell you what, new rules.
Well, I think you're 100% right. I think he has respect generally for what they did, but at the end of the day, he's not going to let any of that stand in the way of what he wants to do. Like, he's just not that type of guy. It doesn't matter.
He's a man of industry,
of his own industry only.
Yeah. He's like, oh, I can, I'm an animation house now.
Yeah.
And things would go by approval with him, and I think there was a lot of pick and choose. Well, that looks pretty cool, or that sounds good. Throw it in there.
Yeah.
Well,
and that was stuff that happened in the movies and the show.
Yeah, I mean, he let his daughter write episodes, and like she hasn't worked after that.
She didn't get picked up.
I mean, I think the proof's in the pudding.
Well, she also got her acting career as an extra in episode 3, but her movie acting career didn't really launch either.
Yeah, I don't think anything really launched. I'm thinking that's what do you call that? What's the word?
It's called nepism.
That's the
word. but and I totally get it. I mean, like there's I'll throw my kids into stuff and wanted to get them involved. So I get it.
Oh,
but
totally.
But at the same time, it's like in the same breath, it's just keep the criticism consistent. Is that like this dude didn't care about the EU. This dude didn't like. he acknowledged it and he respected it to some extent. Like I think Coruscant has EU origins, and Kashyyyk definitely has EU origins.
Oh, 100%.
I think
These are all things that popped up in the novels and the source books, and funny enough, not everybody loves the end of Return of the Jedi and the special editions, but that's our first glimpse of Coruscant. For me, anyway, that was tremendous.
Yeah, me too.
And one sec, I got to throw this in.
Do it.
I just looked up what George Lucas's daughter wrote. The Clone Wars episodes, she wrote those Night Sister episodes.
Yes, that's exactly what I'm referring to. And and in the bonus content of the DVDs, she calls herself a genius.
Wow.
She's like, if I do say so myself.
It's like, wait a minute, a genius for just ripping this stuff out of my favorite book.
I can only imagine the credentials on her wall.
That's wonderful. That's wonderful.
So yeah, it's. I mean, like, I don't get like the political, like the people are putting their politics in Star Wars just because it's a pop culture thing that's in a bubble now, and it's just because it's in your face, they want to assign the politics to it.
So we don't have time to unpack all of that, but but I do feel like the politics are always there. It just depends on how old you are when you're consuming them that it matters. Like
right, but I think that there was also politics. Like people were saying that the way that the Emperor sees his power was like a
Bush thing.
Like exactly.
Yeah.
So it's just people are going to criticize it for whatever it is in its time, and they're going to get defensive or whatnot.
So I got one last question for you.
Sure.
All right, and I want you to take some time. Don't spit out an answer if you're not prepared to answer it. But you got 3 minutes. What of the droid attack on the Wookiees?
That's the newest meme, man. It's all over the place, and it's just such a throwaway line.
Isn't it crazy though how like these little things become like
how it takes off? But the one where he's he's made into Darth Vader with like the super tall helmet.
Oh God,
it's wild.
Yeah. So who's your favorite Star Wars character?
Oh geez, I'm gonna say Luke.
So that would also answer who's your favorite Jedi. Who's your favorite Sith Lord?
Sidious.
Who is your favorite non-Force user?
I just immediately go to Han.
Yeah, no, I hear you there. Gort, you got anything?
Yeah, no, I like these kind of questions, but I got some out of the box ones. But first, I always like this. Favorite lightsaber color?
I'm gonna say green.
Green. Okay. Best Ewok moment?
When Homeboy runs off with the bike.
All right.
And does some spins.
Yeah, he does. Yeah, he does.
If you could pilot a ship, which would it be?
I'm just gonna say Millennium Falcon, just because it seems comfortable. Like I wouldn't want to have a long distance trip in that X-wing.
If you owned the Falcon, would you find yourself having this unexplainable urge to get yourself a super hairy dog?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah,
man.
me too, dude. Me too. I'd totally get one.
Yeah, you run around in that thing, like play fetch in it. I mean,
You only get one force power. What's it going to be?
Probably the suggestion.
All right.
The little fingers waving.
Yeah, that would be a great one.
From medial to lateral.
I would use it at Chick-fil-A. I would just say, I want to get a number 1, and you will give me the appropriate amount of ketchup packs.
I will give you the appropriate amount. Most likely character to die in Episode 9.
Poe.
I could handle that.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, they already kind of like they already kind of like teased Finn in 8 and then didn't,
right,
and then retracted on that. So it's like that would be dumb. But I think now that I think about it, like Rose might kick it, but I think that would make it weird.
Yeah, because it would seem like they were
politically.
Yeah, I agree. It would seem like they were trying to appease.
Right. I think that Poe would be the appropriate choice, in terms of, what would piss people off or not.
Do you think Leia will survive? But no, that's not a joke. The character.
I have to say no.
I'm gonna say yes.
I'm gonna say yes because they might do like a animated series after it. If they choose to do that, and
I don't know. With this Resistance show, I don't think they can keep doing those.
And should they? Should they dedicate 9 to Mayhew?
Yes,
I think so too.
Yeah, I mean, why wouldn't they?
Yeah.
I mean, he's the only one who's died since then, right?
Correct.
So,
they dedicated.
It just makes sense.
They dedicated 8 to Leia. Cool.
Did Kenny Baker get one?
No, I don't think so.
Oh, really?
I don't think so, because I think he died during 3 to 7. So unless 7 dedicated it.
Oh, okay. Right.
Not close enough.
Yeah. Well, anyway, I got to wrap this up. Mike, it was a tremendous conversation. I really, really enjoyed. Thank you for coming on, and like I said, we're going to try to touch base with everybody after 9 and get like a quick 10 to 15 minute blurb that we'll compile into
Yeah, I'm pretty non-committal. So.
right.
Yeah, we'll see where those expectations lead.
right.
Exactly. It's like, I don't know. I don't really have great expectations for it. But yeah, I definitely would would love to come on.
Beautiful. And thanks again. I wasn't like, I woke up a little late this morning and I kind of had to jump right into this, and I was actually like 3 to 4 minutes late, which is very unlike me. But
I'm glad I stayed in bed for another hour this morning then.
but I'm very happy that we had this conversation because I found it really fulfilling. So with that being said, Gort, we got to work on a thing to say goodbye. But until then, goodbye.
Yes.